Welcome back to Ty and That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is my good pal Ty Franck.
I'm learning to hold my microphone the way Wes does to make the audience more comfortable.
People talk a lot about my microphone, and they say that that I'm making love to it, and I'm not making love to it. It's foreplay.
Yeah, it's just foreplay.
It's just foreplay. Yeah. I caress it, and every now and then my lips touch it, but I'm not making love to it. I'm teasing it. I'm a tease. What are we talking about today, Mr. Franck?
I believe it's season 2, episode 7, The Seventh Man. That just shows how clever we are, that the 7th episode is The Seventh Man. See? That's just good writing.
And before you created the board game, before you wrote the books with Daniel, before the show, you had an idea that you wanted to do something that would get to a point that you would have a TV show, and then you knew that the 7th episode you were going to call it The Seventh Man. Yeah. That was the seed idea.
That's the level of
for
planning.
The whole Expanse.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the level of planning, is to get to this one episode, and God damn it, you did it, Ty. You fucking did it. Your mom would be proud of you.
Well, it was the journey of years to get there, but it made it all worthwhile.
This one was written by Georgia Lee, and it was directed by Ken Fink.
Ken Fink is an old friend of Narain Shankar, showrunner. They worked together on CSI, and Ken was a producing director on CSI. He was one of the main guys over there, and has been producing and directing television for, I don't know, probably 30-some years. He's an incredibly skilled television director.
And watching this episode, because I started watching it and before I saw who directed it, and I was really paying attention to how great and well this was directed and edited and written. Specifically the opening shot when we get to Tycho. The camera's going through and telling the story. We see Dawes, we see Naomi, we see Steven, we see Amos. We get all through the visual storytelling that Tycho is now a refugee station for Ganymede. You know, whenever something can be told visually like that in a big, large part of the story, it's just really well done and very skilled. And I love working with Ken Fink. He's an old salty New York guy.
He's pretty salty. Not everybody felt the same love, but you know what? I actually really like working with those old salty guys. Here's the thing, is they're not going to baby you. They're not going to be careful of your feelings, but they always say what they mean. There's never you never have to figure it out. There's no interpretation. They just tell you what they want, and they tell you very directly what they want. I've always preferred that to the more touchy-feely version of things.
Yeah, I much prefer that.
I will say, though, on the thing you were talking about there, with a sequence like the one you're talking about, that's a number of things are happening there, because not only do you have to direct those sequences, but it becomes very clear that the person had already edited that sequence in their head, and they were shooting the exact shots they needed to get the cut that they wanted, that they'd already put together in their head. And the very best directors that we've worked with are the ones who can do that, who can sort of edit the show in their head ahead of time, and they're really specific on their shot selection, because they've already seen the movie in their head, and they're shooting the shots they've already seen in their head. They're
specific with their shot selection, but they're also confident in their shot selection. Whereas you might get another director where he wants to shoot every single angle, every single possibility, collect as much footage as possible, so when he's in the editing room, he knows that he's covered. And there's some directors that are extremely confident in understanding the editing process and shooting, where they're very spare. They edit in their head and they shoot it in a way where they just get the footage that they know they're going to need.
Now, I will say, as a producer, what we like on the producing side, the writing producing side, is we like somebody who's just a little bit in the middle. Because, I want somebody who's confident. I want somebody who's shooting the scene the way they saw it in their head. I want that confidence.
Yeah.
At the same time, there may be editorial reasons where I need to get out of something a little earlier than they expected, or, because in editing, we may restructure a little bit. And if we don't have any other footage to cut to, it can really complicate that process. So I want the guy who's confident and spare, but I also want him to give me a little bit of extra stuff so that I have it available.
What's funny is some of those old veteran salty directors, they will shoot enough to where the producers don't have enough to change it, because they won't have it their way. Also, if they do one-ers, you do one-ers in a way because you can kind of control the process. And then when the producers come in, they got to choose 1 or 2 or 3 of the takes that you did the one shot in.
if you're going to do something like that, you better make sure that the producers are on board and agree with it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just going to piss us off.
All right, so we pick up on Ganymede. The Ganymede has just been attacked, and Ganymede is the breadbasket for the outer planets. Bobby is being rescued from the survivors of the Scirocco. Now, I was going to ask you about this because tell me if I remember this correctly. I remember you and I having a conversation. I don't know if I've asked you about this, but I remember you talking about an article that you once read where they talk about the mirror system that Ganymede was using. Is that correct?
I had read a thing about farming on low light planets or on low light moons or whatever, and one of the ideas that they talked about is using orbital mirrors to capture and concentrate sunlight for farming and whatever. I just liked the sound of it. I liked the idea of it. The way that those mirrors in orbit would look seemed cool. That's all it is.
Hey, you just reminded me of something. This is a side note. You know our pal and savior, Jeff Bezos, he's going up to space, and he's going to take his brother. My question to you is,
why you and I aren't on that ship?
Yeah. Or is there ever a possibility that we're going to be on one of those ships, and would we be the first movie that was actually shot in space?
I don't know that Jeff is going to throw free rocket rides to us.
I'm going to text him right now and see.
Yeah, you should. Reach out. Say, hey, Jeff, give us a free rocket ride.
I call him Jay. I call him JB. All right. I texted him. I'll let you know if he texts you before the thing's over with.
Cool.
So I assume that the red flakes coming down is the blood that is in the atmosphere of all the killing of all the bodies?
No, that red snowflake is actually Bobby's blood. Mm-hmm. If you see, the arm of her suit has been badly damaged, and there's a hole in the armor, and there's actually blood coming out of it.
Right. It's a double metaphor of the fragility of life, right? The beautiful snowflake and the
beautiful snowflake made out of blood.
Yeah.
On the writing side, here's what's interesting about that is every episode has a writer on it. Like Georgia is the writer of this one. And early on, you'll write the outline of it or you'll write the script, but all of it is a huge team effort. We break the story together. We critique the original writing together. Senior producers or the showrunner may take passes on the script and rewrite portions of it, all of that. So everything is like a lot of people touch every script, no matter who wrote it. Georgia came in with that idea for the hole in the armor and the blood coming out and the bloody snowflake. That was a visual image that she brought to the room, that she pitched to the room from like the first day she pitched that.
Right.
And that stayed in the script through every iteration. So George's idea for that thing, that was 100% George's idea. Through months of rewriting, months of rebreaking the story, all of the things that happened, her vision for that shot stayed in the story. And that's how you can tell when something is really good, because it survives the whole process. So, kudos to Georgia, because that was her idea from day one, and it was always stayed in there.
I miss Georgia. She would be a good guest to have on the show at some point.
Yeah, I would love to have Georgia on the show. She would be a lovely guest.
Right.
We should definitely track her down.
Now, remind me again, and I know that this is probably going to be a spoiler alert for the rest of the seasons, but I'm pretty sure everybody that's listening to this is doing a rewatchable. But Bobby thinks that the UN Marines are actually charging her, but what she comes to realize is that they're running from this seventh man. Right before that happens, she sees this mysterious drone, and this is all coordinated with the attacks of her ship that's above Ganymede in the atmosphere. Is this an Aaron Wright, Jules Pierre Mao? Are they orchestrating this, and what is the point of this?
This is the mystery that plays out across the second season.
Right. So I want you to I want you to feel in the whole mystery right now.
I'm happy to do it, but yeah, this is in a later episode, the scene where Bobby beats the crap out of her superior officer in his room. She really lays it out there that this was a product demo because they were trying to sell these hybrid super soldiers to Mars, and this was a demo of one of the super soldiers. It's Mao. It's not Aaron Wright, because of course Aaron Wright doesn't want to sell these to Mars, but it's Mao's people doing it. Yeah. And
what is his goal again for doing it?
So what Mao wants to do is he wants to preserve the now we're talking high concept stuff. This is stuff we very slowly figure out, of course, across the course of the show.
Is it his way of provoking a war?
No, what Mao wants to maintain the status quo. He wants to maintain, think of it like the USSR and the US in the Cold War, the mutually assured destruction. That's what you got with Mars and Earth. You've got this mutually assured destruction. What he wants to do is he wants to maintain that status quo. and he wants to sell arms to both sides. He wants to sell hybrids to both sides. He wants to maintain the status quo because he's got bigger ambitions than that. If his ambitions come to fruition, governments won't matter and the Cold War won't matter. None of that will matter if he can get to the end result that he's trying to get to. In the meantime, he just needs everybody to play nice for a little while. And following the Eros incident, Mars and Earth are at war, which is a thing everybody hoped would never happen, but they're actually in a shooting war now. He's just trying to get everybody back to the table where, you know, we can get back to the...
But how does attacking Ganymede accomplish that?
Well, what he does is, so it becomes very clear that there was this extremely potent bioweapon on Eros. Ehrenreich believes that that's his weapon because Mao has been working with him. What Mao is saying to Mars is, look, I'll sell it to you guys too. Everybody will have it. Nobody will have an advantage. And then everybody can just calm down.
So this was the sales demo to Mars. And is Mars aware of this when they're questioning Bobby Draper?
Yes, which is why they keep telling her that she doesn't remember the story right.
Did they assume that she was going to be dead? And then when they found her, was that not part of the plan?
That was not part of the plan. Everybody was supposed to die.
So they find her and like, oh shit, she's alive. So we got to make sure. So when they were questioning her, Bobby comes to learn very quickly that they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in inserting a narrative in her mind and putting their words in her mouth. Yeah. And, you know, Bobby's picking up on this really fast. A shout out to, is it Clay Bennett, the guy that played the one that's questioning her on the ship? He's great. Yeah. He's got great voice, great presence, very good in the scene. Good job.
He actually is quite good. We actually looked at him for a number of parts before we wound up casting him for this part. He was a name that came across our casting agent's desk over and over and over again. He's definitely one of the talents up there in Toronto that's getting a lot of work now and getting a lot of attention.
The Expanse series has really benefited from all that great talent up there in Toronto.
We have hired and killed every great actor in Toronto, I think.
We can't go another season because we don't got anybody to kill anymore.
There's nobody left. We're
going to just be getting people off the street and being like, hey, man, you look right. Come on in. Let's do it. So now Bobby's quickly putting up that they're not interested in the truth. They don't want her to talk about the drone. They don't want her to talk about, and by the way, cold-blooded to have this be a demo reel. And just, I mean, come on, Pierre Mao. Jesus Christ. Like, you're going to slaughter these people for a demo reel? Why can't you? I mean,
dude, he just killed 100,000 people on Eros, man. This is nothing.
But he was doing that. Like, I thought the motivation for that, and this actually is going to match our theme for our top 5 at the end of the episode, but I thought the motivation was that there's this weapon out there that really shows that there's another life, and they're capable of creating this thing. If we ever want to protect ourselves from the thing that created that, we need to understand it. So we're doing these experiments, and that's what it's going to be. But I didn't know that he's creating these super weapons and then creating a highlight reel out of Martian and UN bodies to be able to sell the weapon to these governments. I mean, that's cold.
He's got to get Earth and Mars to buy in to funding his further research. He wants to take the protomolecule research to the next level. He needs huge government support for that. The way he's doing it is he's selling them guns so that they'll fund his scientific research.
But it also gives him a tremendous amount of power because when they see this thing out there, whether they object to how he showed it to them or not, we have to have it. So we got to do whatever he's, or we're the country without the nukes. So, it definitely makes sense. I want to talk a little bit. I love it when the chaplain comes up and does the I served with your father story and they have that conversation. Every action movie that I love, it has 2 things. It has I served with your father. Like you think about Top Gun. He's like, I flew with this old man.
Yep.
But also the other line is, why me? Because you're the best. So there's always that scene where, they find this guy out in the wilderness, that's been given up on life and he doesn't want anything to do with people and everything. They find him and they got to bring him back in for one last rodeo. And there's always that moment like, why me? Because you're the best. And there's always, I flew with this old man and because you're the best. It always makes me happy. It's like one of those things that, the Pavlovian response to me is like, just I know that magic's going to happen on the other end of that line. So Bobby's journey in this episode ends with her knowing that she's going to have to go to Earth. And they want her to be a puppet and basically do what they want her to do, what's in the best interest of the nation. And so now Bobby has to balance what she believed she was as a soldier, what she believed Mars was, with the new understanding and version of Mars, and is this still something that she wants to be a part of? You know, that her arc is it's a hell of an arc, you know, going from somebody that's so idealistic, the dream of Mars and believing in the dream of Mars, but coming to the realization that to achieve that dream, you're going to have to operate outside of your honor system. That's kind of in line with the theme of our top 5. So we get to Tycho Station. We talked a little bit about how great that establishing shot was. Good job, Ken. This was really well directed. There's a lot of great scenes in it. But I don't know if it caught your eye, but there's a little handsome man candy that's in the crowd as the camera's passing by, and his name is Francis, and that's our good friend and DP Jeremy Benning's partner. And Francis looks like a Greek god, and he's got that long, luscious hair. You know, Francis is a good friend of ours, and we spent a lot of time over at Jeremy's house.
He cut all his hair off, and I was devastated because I was so jealous of his amazing hair that he cut it short. I was like, dude, that's like you just painted on the Mona Lisa, man. You can't just rip, dude. You can't break stuff like that. If you can grow hair that looks like a Disney bad guy, you know, you never cut it. Like you keep it like it is. No, just leave it alone. And so anyway, he cut his hair, which tragic for you and I because we were big fans of his hair. We've let him know many times. But you know, hair grows back. Maybe he'll get back on that horse. You know, I don't know. One can hope. One can hope.
We see Anderson Dawes giving out supplies. We get to see Holden and Naomi have a completely different opinion of Dawes. And it's a nice little detail, a nice little scene that really shows the divide between them. The divide that will ultimately lead to what Naomi's already done is hiding the protomolecule, seeing things different than Holden. And that's what's wonderful about their love story is that they truly love and care for each other, but they see the world differently. And they grew up in two completely different places, and you see that. It's
important to me, both in the books and in the show, and we had a lot of conversations about this in the writing room, that just because Naomi is with Holden, she can't like surrender all of the things that matter to her to just be like Holden's attachment, right? They are from very different places, and that they do have very different worldviews. And she does have things she cares about deeply that he'll never really understand. And that doesn't mean that she should stop caring about them. My belief is that two people who have very different worldviews can be happy together. They just have to allow space for the other person to have their worldview, and they have to allow space for the other person to care about things. Like, it's okay for the person you're with to care about things and you don't understand why they care about them. That's okay. You have to give them the space to care. The developing relationship between the two of them, for me, has always been about them knowing more about each other, becoming more aware of the other person's position, and still having enough respect to go, I don't get why you need to do that. I don't get why you care about that, but I support you in caring about that, and I'm going to back you. I think that's the best kind of relationship.
What does Janae care about that you don't?
Almost everything. She cares a great deal about many, many things, and I care about like three things. That's funny. So,
and then the great Jared Harris, Anderson Dawes. What I love about this episode, this is the first episode where he gets to really open up and fire on all cylinders, and you get to really see how smart, how clever he is, and he knows that there's this super weapon, or there's rumors out there about this bioweapon on Eros. And so he's there to find out what that thing is. You know, his instincts, he senses that this could really tip the power balance. And so you see how he speaks to Fred Johnson, how he speaks to the Belter crowd when Fred Johnson, basically says, we want a Belter at the table. It can't be me. It should be a Belter. Here's Anderson Dawes, who I think is the most influential out of all those. What play was Fred Johnson making when he publicly nominated Anderson Dawes? Did he truly just believe that he was the best person for the job?
Sometimes the best thing you can do is be the first person to say something. I think Fred knew he was never going to wind up with that job. I think he knew that there would be, even if he somehow forced his way in there would be significant pushback from a lot of elements in the belt, because he is to some degree an interloper. And I think he knows that Anderson Dawes has the political muscle to probably get himself that job. So how does Fred stay part of the process? The way Fred can stay part of the process is he says, I can't be the king, but I'll be the king maker. And so he puts the crown on Dawes' head, which Dawes was going to wear that crown no matter what. So he can put it on. And then he's seen as the guy behind the king. He's seen as the guy who's important in the political process that created the king. And so he can still keep some power for himself. He can still remain involved, and he avoids all of the fighting that would have come if he tried to force his way into that top position.
It's also a gesture of, I'm not trying to be their king, reassuring that his story is like, I'm here for you guys. I'm here to serve you in whatever capacity I can, but I'm not trying to take power over this. It wouldn't be right. It's not me. And, and that's a really smart political position to play. And Anderson knows what he's doing. And Anderson gives this great speech. It's so complex and nuanced, and he knows specifically which word is going to Naomi, what he's saying to Holden, what he's saying to the crowd. He's getting them riled up. So he kind of accepts this, but he kind of doesn't accept it. Totally agrees with Fred over the missiles that Fred has now commandeered from the UN, and he knows that it doesn't make sense to use those against Earth. But he also doesn't want to stop the unrest between Earth and Mars, because when they're peaceful, their guns always turn on the belters, and he gets them hyped up. And it's just a really well done, well acted, well read speech.
He even reaches out to Holden and said, because he recognizes that in this moment, Holden is a hero of the belt, and to reject Holden would be politically unwise in that moment. So he reaches out to him, Holden, Baratna, like you're one of us. Yeah, I respect you, and I'm glad that you're on our side.
Because Holden jumps in agreeing with Fred, backing Fred up.
Yeah.
And instead of pushing back, which he had the momentum in the crowd and the power to do, but it would have cost him something. But instead of doing that, he invites him in. He brings him into these warm hugs and everything. I fucking love Anderson Dawes. I love this. And this episode was great watching him work.
I'm going to say this because season 6 of The Expanse will be coming out sometime the end of this year, I'm guessing. And I'll just say this for our audience. Here's a little Easter egg for you guys. The things that happen in this scene, in this episode, lay the groundwork for one of the most important scenes of season 6. All the people who are here learned their lessons, and those lessons play out in dramatic fashion at an incredibly important moment in season 6. So we're playing the long game with this stuff.
So what you're saying is I'm not the most important scene in season 6 because I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I don't fucking know, man. I had COVID a while ago, and my mind has not came back online. Yeah, I'm not the same.
Your mind is all
I'm just
fucked
kidding.
up?
I'm for people listening, I'm totally kidding. I'm the same. My health is great. I never had a great memory, so I don't know if I'm in season 6 or not. Now, Dawes comes up and is all hugged up on Drummer. Did they know each other in the biblical sense?
Yep. For the audience, I want to make sure I state this very plainly. I have enormous respect for Cara G, one of my favorite actors on the show. I have enormous respect for her as a human. So none of this is a reflection of that. But what I will say, what we quickly realized on the show, is somehow Cara has sexual tension with literally everyone in the room with her. I don't know how she does that, but every character that she spends any time with on the show, she winds up having sexual tension with them. So I don't know. We didn't write into it that Dawes and Drummer had any romantic relationship in the past, but they're seen together. Somehow it kind of feels like that.
Can I just say I think it's interesting as hell, and I think that would be a great choice.
Now, I will say this, though, and I think maybe Cara mentioned this when we did our interview with her on the show, that we wrote a story called Butcher of Anderson Station about Fred Johnson's past and the results of his attack on Anderson Station, the people who were killed there. And in that story, Dawes confronts Fred. It's the first time they've met. He confronts him. He says, you can be part of the solution. You can help me, or I can kill you and throw you out this airlock. And while he's having that conversation with him, there's a woman standing there with a gun to Fred's head through the whole conversation, not saying anything. Cara read that, and she was like, could Drummer be that woman? And I was like, she absolutely could have. She could have been that woman. So I think Cara built in her head that she and Dawes go way back, and that she was part of the group that brought Fred in the first place. And so I think she's playing a lot of that history in her scenes. And it just shows how good an actress she is, that she can play that history without ever saying anything. Like, they feel like they go back a long way just the way they're playing it.
So we get to see Dawes like tailor make his communication as he speaks to Holden, and then you see him in the scene when he's trying to look around Holden to connect with Naomi, and Holden was really resisting him connecting to Naomi. And then he lands on Diogo. He knows just how to flatter Diogo. And from Diogo, he really learns about everything, about Protomolecule, what happened on Eros. And then, so now through Diogo, he learns about Cortazar. Cortazar is at this point, and I was going to ask you this question. So there's a moment where Cortazar says that the protomolecule is talking to him. Is the protomolecule communicating with Cortazar like it was with Holden?
No. What he's talking about there is that in his studies of what it's been doing, because obviously during the Eros incident, they found Cortazar in the lab, and they were all, looking at the scientific information that was coming out of the station. And he feels like he's starting to see a pattern in what the protomolecule does, that like he's starting to be able to interpret it. He's been starting to be able to understand it. And that's what he means by it's talking to me. Like if you listen to a piece of music enough times, you start to hear themes in it and go, oh, I see what the composer was doing here. That's what he's saying. He's starting to feel like he can see what the composer meant to do with the protomolecule.
Right, but he's just starting to see patterns and starting to see what he wants, whatever. So, Fred Johnson has a conversation with Holden and basically explains to Holden is that his connection to the protomolecule is through Cortazar. Cortazar has this deep understanding and is keeping the protomolecule alive. The people think you're talking about it. So Holden knows that that's the one connection that Fred Johnson has to the protomolecule. And he wakes up in the middle of the night. And this is a great scene for me because he wakes up in the middle of the night. He goes and gets his gun. He goes down and he's going to execute Cortazar. He's made that decision because for the greater good, he's going to do something that violates and goes against Holden's own moral compass and honor code. And to me, these situations, and we talked a little bit about this in our last episode, but the situations which would be considered the protagonist or the hero of this is put into a situation where they got to violate or go against their own moral code to do something for the greater good. Watching it, I was surprised. That's great writing. When you get surprised and then you go through it, and it's like it makes perfect sense. This is his only place. This is what he's going to have to do. And then when he gets there in the cell, Cortazar's gone. Why he took him? Because clever Anderson Dawes figured out that this is going to be his path to the bioweapon that's going to balance the power in the solar system. So my question to you is, though, Holden's in the bed with Naomi. They're all cuddled up. And he has the idea of what he wants to do. He gets up, gets the gun, goes down to the cell. He's not there. And then he calls the Rossi real quick. And Naomi and Alex are full dress gear on the flight deck when he calls. So how does that happen? Well, all right, we'll fill in the blanks. What happened was maybe he woke Naomi up when he got out. She knew something was up. She put her outfit on. And then Alex was on watch. And so by the time she got there, so when he calls, she's already there on the flight deck and he's on watch.
That sounds good to me. I didn't read this episode.
So the Rossi chases the ship down, and that's a fun little moment because we get to see Alex and Naomi's talents. It was the first time, too, I've ever seen Naomi hold a gun, and that was kind of a surprise thing. I think later Dominique makes a choice that Naomi chose not to hold guns or to use guns a long time ago. And so she decides not to do that.
That's actually from the books. We never show Naomi carrying a gun or trying to kill somebody. The idea is she's still struggling with what happened with the Augustin Gomara and the 500 and some people that were killed using something she had created. She's still very torn about that. And the idea that someone can force you to commit violence because she feels like Marco forced her to commit violence and kill a bunch of people. That's all part of her backstory. So she tries to avoid being the person who commits violence as much as possible. In that situation, Alex sort of forces her to do it. But then you get to see the moment afterwards. She shoves the gun into his chest and she goes, "You don't get to tell me to kill people." Basically saying, don't shove a gun into my hands ever again, is the idea there. Yeah. I mean, the reality is of the entire crew,
right?
Naomi is by far the most lethal of the entire crew. She's also just incredibly conflicted about it. She doesn't want to be the person who kills people. She doesn't want to be the person who resorts to violence to solve her problems. In many ways, I think that's why she latched onto Amos.
So then they get the ship, and Diogo is alone on that ship, and they've been outsmarted by Anderson Dawes. And that's just a great Just a great, like Anderson Dawes shows up, figures out what he needs to know, gets what he needs to get, and gets out, and nobody, just like under everybody's noses. That was a good moment. Yep. Can we say? We'll say a little bit about Amos pushing the shit out of that kid's mom. I went back to watch this, and I was like, Jesus Christ, Amos. I know you said one package, but you could, but I went back. I was surprised at him shoving her off her feet. I don't remember at the time, but I hope we had a stunty in there. I don't know what that came from.
And I don't know if this is a conversation you had with Ken, but I do feel like a lot of that feels like Amos's past sort of coming up in his subconscious there, because being there with all those refugees and all these people who have nothing, and they're shoving each other to try to get like one little pack of food. I think that called up too much of Amos's past for him.
Initially, Holden is saying, we're going to do this refugee thing. There's people coming in for Ganymede. This is what we're going to, he's like, all right, well, here, hand out food. Okay, I'll hand out food. Here, take one, take one. He's just doing what, he's just, helping out, doing what he's told. He's not really emotionally engaged. And when he's saying take one, the lady rushes in a way that's just a all he does is kind of lift his hand. She falls back. The kid charges him and says, you hurt, and he sees the tears and the pain in this kid's eyes and the fear that he has for the mom that he loves, and that triggers him. That throws him into, which we'll see in later seasons, it awakens this thing deep within inside that once it gets unleashed, he can't control it. It motivates him to go talk to Cortazar, being like, I don't know what this thing is in me, but maybe I could burn it out so I don't have to deal with the repercussions when it comes out, because we see in season 4 when it really, when it really takes control of Amos.
Definitely that kid was the final straw. I feel like when I watched the scene, like he's also a person that doesn't feel comfortable in the middle of a crowd, because I'm the same way. I do not feel comfortable if I'm surrounded by people. I always have to kind of have my back to a wall. I need to be able to see the exits. I need to be able to sort of keep everybody in front of me. And I think there's a rising tension there with all this stuff going on.
But you love going to rock concerts.
I do.
The dichotomy of you.
It's the weird.
You contain multitudes.
It's the weird dichotomy of me.
You're so fascinating to me, Ty.
I'm an enigma wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a sweater vest. Yeah. So, but I think you're right. I think with that moment where when the kid is afraid of Amos, it makes Amos check himself that he's made a little kid afraid of him. Like he doesn't like that. And as we've said before on this show, the number one way to get a massive beatdown is to pick on a little kid in Amos's vicinity. That's the best way you could do that. You try to hurt a kid and Amos is anywhere nearby. That's your ass, right? And so when Amos sees a kid being afraid of him,
that's a really powerful
a blow,
thing.
I think, to his view of himself.
It's a great moment. It's a great detail in there.
My favorite Amos stuff is all the stuff that happens after that.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I've heard stories about it. Does this procedure exist? Is it possible? The one that Cortazar went under? Because I've heard stories about people having brain damage and they come back and they're completely different. It's almost like a sociopath. They don't have the ability to empathize anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we've become more and more aware of what regions of the brain contribute to personality. And of course, it's incredibly complex. It's way too complex to discuss here, but we've become more aware. I mean, there are certain places in your brain that we can electrically stimulate and you will believe you have seen God. They've done that experiment over and over again. Like you can make somebody absolutely believe they have seen God just by stimulating a certain part of their brain.
But here's the thing. But this is what's interesting to me is why would they think it's God? I mean, like why, when you say believe they've seen God, what is it, an image? And then some people could interpret that as God, or some people can interpret it.
Yeah, I don't know all the details on it, but I do know that they've had that. But there is a place in the brain that you can, using currents, dampen, and you will turn off a person's ability to empathize. And it is the portion of the brain that sociopaths have long-term damage to or is stunted.
I mean, listen, I think that I am really interested in psilocybin and DMT or ayahuasca, but there's definitely does something to your brain where you feel like you have a deeper understanding of the world that you're living in. You're looking at things at a completely different perspective, and you are emotionally open and vulnerable in ways that you've never been in your regular life. And so there's definitely an incredible amount of therapeutic benefit that comes from those type of psychedelics.
I just use tequila.
And Wait, yeah. I mean, you drink enough of it, I'm sure you have the same thing. But I always look at it like alcohol takes away from you, but psychedelics gives you something, you know? But I love alcohol too, so I'm not bashing it. You know, maybe we'll do a podcast on psychedelics. Maybe we'll do a podcast on psychedelics. Not the topic of psychedelics, but we're on psychedelics while we're giving the podcast and see how.
I don't do hallucinogens. And it's not because I am opposed to drugs. I think all drugs should be legalized. It's not that. The reason I don't do hallucinogens is because I am a black pit filled with some nasty shit, and I don't want to drag any of that stuff up. I want to keep it stuffed down there. I want to keep the lid on the pit, all that stuff locked away. I don't want to pop the lid open and see what crawls out, man. I'm not down for that.
I think either you should come to me in the woods of Georgia, or I should come to you in the woods of Washington, and we do a little. We touch the other side. We take a little trip to the other side, and we do a podcast with it, and we share it with our loyal 8 fans, and we share that experience with them.
Yeah, and I don't like the idea of the podcast where I completely lose my shit and it's 20 minutes of you choking me out.
No, I won't choke you. I will hug you. I will pet you. Yeah, I'm not. I won't. Yes, we're gonna do it, and that's So Clint's on board.
We're gonna do this. This is happening.
Wes, can you get in Lou Diamond Phillips makeup and visit the spirit world during this?
We're in the spirit world, asshole. Hey dog. Did you see the size of that chicken? How come they ain't killing us?
You do a great Dirty Steve.
So we don't know yet if that procedure does exist or doesn't exist. If it did exist, could you imagine?
It's less science fiction than you think.
Yeah, could you imagine how much shit you would get done if you could eliminate like all your vulnerability and all your empathy and sympathy and everything?
I don't feel like I get all that much work done. So,
so Avasarala is in the war room. There's no fight in the war room. Nah, she's not in the war room, but basically she's having in the war room. She's having the same conversation she's been having, where you got Aaron Wright, Sorrento Gillis. So you got them, they're itching for war. Avasarala is the voice of reason and saying, why the fuck would Mars blow up the breadbasket of the solar system when it's a joint operation between Earth and Mars? It makes no sense. Yep. Just calm the fuck down and stop trying to blow up every fucking thing, every episode. But she has that great moment where they say, you're smarter than your dad. How come you never went for politics? And she says, because I wanted to get shit done and I don't want to lose my head.
Yeah, no, Avasarala very much likes being the person behind the throne.
The kingmaker.
She likes being the kingmaker. She likes being the person behind the throne, which is why later in seasons 4 and 5, when we force her up onto the throne, almost against her will, she doesn't do well. She's not good at it. When she was the left-hand man, she was the Grand Vizier. She's amazing at that job. She's the best. You shove her up onto the throne and she starts getting a little wobbly because that's not what she's good at. It's not what she likes doing. I think she learns to accept the responsibility of it. She comes to accept that there isn't anybody better positioned to do that job than her. So she powers her way through it. She has the intelligence to do that. But she's not comfortable there. And we try very hard to make it clear she's not comfortable there.
Whenever I hear, like we were talking about Mars basically trying to control what Bobby's going to say, that they're not interested in the truth, that they're more interested in pushing their narrative forward through Bobby, it always makes me wonder, it's like, how much do we think when we get up and we read, the paper every day and we think we're getting this? Like, I always imagine, like, how different does the absolute truth look? Because it's got to look different, right?
I do. I was trying to think of a good example, but so I sort of lost track there. Now I'm just going to look dumb.
What do you think about all this stuff coming out with the Navy now just confirming the unidentified flying objects, and that they're basically saying, yeah, we see this shit all the time. We don't know what it is.
I remind the audience once again that the U in UFO is unidentified.
Look, I'll tell you what's scary to me. If there's another government out there that has this kind of technology that's light years ahead of us.
Or, some of this stuff came out a little while ago. They were talking about its misunderstanding of the instruments. It's, a new kind of instrument that was reporting strange data and it was misunderstood. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. So far, at least so far, I'm a skeptic, but I'm not a person who refuses to believe things once they're proven true. So far, the answer that takes it from a U to an I, when it goes from unidentified to identified, so far 0% of the times has it been alien spaceships. That may change in the future. And if it does, it'll be fascinating and I'll be very excited to see what we do from there on out.
Yeah.
But so far, it is a 0% success rate.
Yeah. And
we'll see what happens, though.
And I think you and I are in line in your thinking and your opinion on these things. But there is a part of me that's like, that just thinks it'll be so interesting. You know, I always get a little disappointed when it's like, damn it. When you first hear about it, it's like, this is so cool. What if there is this other thing out there, this other possibilities? Like, it just opens up the universe. And also, like, how great would that be for the Earth? You know, that.
Well, maybe. We talked about this before, though. I think absolute proof that a superior alien civilization is out there could have some you hope for the best, but I think it could have some very negative effects on our species and its sense of its place in the universe.
We didn't talk about this because you don't think it would unite us?
I do not. Like, we've had a lot of opportunities to unite, and so far we have a zero track record of uniting in the face of great threats. I think climate change, I think we faced the most dramatic existential threat our species has ever faced. And we couldn't fucking unite over that.
Well, hold on. I don't think you've seen that great documentary called Independence Day. And in that documentary, you know, you saw how Earth came together and united against the threat.
Sure.
And yeah, like, you know, we're not uniting over climate change, but if they're literally blowing up, sending lasers down from a ship and blowing up our cities and our blocks, that's immediate. You saw how Earth responded. You saw that.
And I think 10 minutes after the last spaceship crashes, we'll be fighting each other over the scraps.
Yeah, but for that moment.
For that one moment while we're shooting our ships.
While we're under attack, I think we would unite. And then once that happened, then we would try to fill the power vacuum of the places that, So that's unfortunate.
But that's like the alien attack thing. I mean, like, if the government had absolute 100% proof that something that we saw was a spaceship, that it was filled with aliens who have advanced technology, and those aliens don't do anything. They don't attack us. They don't try to, come down and form an embassy. Just, we have proof that aliens exist. We have proof that they're smarter than us, and they have no interest seemingly in talking to us. I think that fact would create enormous problems for humanity's sense of itself.
What type of problems?
And I don't know. I don't know what the end result of that would be.
Like problems in what sense?
In the sense that humanity has always had this sense that we are the most important thing in the universe.
But see,
our religions are based on it, like all this stuff, right? Suddenly being confronted with the fact that maybe we're not the top dog in the universe. You say maybe we would rise to the occasion and be better because of that, and I love the idea of that, and I would love for you to be right. But there's also a version of this where we don't. There's also a version of this where it kicks over the table and all the cards fall on the floor and we just start clawing at each other. And humans have a really bad track record when it comes to this kind of stuff. I would hope for the best and I would expect the worst. If that
I don't know. I think that it would be humbling. And humbling is always a good thing.
But you are an inherently humble person. And so the idea of humbling events doesn't scare you. No,
I think that's my favorite quality is my humility.
I would say that you could brag that you're the most humble person who's ever.
I'm just glad that somebody finally sees it.
You're not afraid of being humbled.
Yeah.
Though. You see being humbled as learning experiences to grow from, right? That's an incredibly healthy attitude. That's not the only attitude that exists. Some people see being humbled as an existential threat. They will do anything to not be humbled. And those people will not respond well to realizing that they're not the smartest thing.
Going back to the documentary Independence Day, one of the things that made me laugh the hardest is the news report where they say, "Please stop shooting at the guns." Stop shooting. And you just picture, and you know people would do that. Just picture some guy out there in his underwear with a shotgun, just like boom, shoot a shotgun at the thing. It's like.
Firing up his 12
gauge. That's funny.
You alien motherfuckers.
Get off my lawn.
Oh, you know there'd be a whole lot of people with pickup trucks and AR-15s just unloading on that ship.
So getting to our top 5 for today, since I love that situation so much that Holden was put in where he's kind of got to go against his own moral compass for the greater good, that will be the topic that we're going today, is the top 5 moments where the hero or the protagonist or the heroine had to go against their moral compass for the greater good. And it's an interesting one because I was really kind of racking my brain of moments. And I kind of was leaning towards, because Holden was going to kill Cortazar, I was kind of leaning towards when the hero, the heroine, was killing for the greater good. But I just think overall, like making a decision, for example, if you take Robert De Niro in Sleepers, when Robert De Niro made the decision to lie on the stand in order to save the kids that were in trouble for murder, that were horribly abused for so many years. Yeah, that's a great one. And to me, that's fascinating when we come across that in fiction or literature or movies or TV or that type of situation.
And when we talked to Jason, another movie we talked about was Rush. One of my favorite scenes in that movie is the one where Jennifer Jason Leigh has promised herself she's never going to cross a line on the drug use in her job as an undercover police officer, and finds herself in a situation when they're dealing with the heroin dealer where she's either going to shoot heroin or she is going to be revealed and not be able to function in the job that she's doing, and makes the decision to cross a line she said she would never cross so that she can keep doing the job she's trying to do. Perfect example of that. You take somebody up to the edge of what they think they would be willing to do, and you just give
What
them
would
that
you
little
have done
nudge.
in that situation?
I would not shoot heroin.
Even if it would have blew your cover, and if you're getting close to the...
There's a few things I don't need to know, and one of those things is how awesome heroin is.
I know.
Because I might just decide it is too awesome. Like, there's some shit I don't need to know. I don't need to know that.
Yeah, you're so right. You get curious about it, and you're like, no, I don't need to know that.
Yeah, like, it's, what it is that when you're happily married and your friend goes, hey, do you know who said she was always hot for you and she would totally sleep with you if you asked? And you go, I don't want to know that. Don't tell me that. That's information I don't need to have. It's the same kind of thing. Like, I don't need to know that heroin is awesome. I don't need to know that supermodel wants to sleep with me. Right. I don't need to know those things.
So I will give you the pool, and then we'll try to figure out the top 5 out of the pool. And then if you can add to it, or if Clint or Joseph has any ideas, hop on and let us know. Dr. Manhattan killing Rorschach. Superman killing Zod. I think this is interesting, right? So in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker destroys the Death Star. Now, the Death Star is the size of a moon, and it's fully populated with workers and all kinds of people on it. Like, is the guy that washes the dishes in the galley, like, is he an evil Empire guy? And also, too, even Darth Vader has a good side. There's some good things. So the point I'm making is he killed a lot of motherfuckers by blowing up the Death Star. And they are cheering and jumping around, but there's some innocent people on that Death Star, I rest assured. So, so that's a lot more.
You got Eddie Izzard working in the cantina.
Yeah, you got. Think about the stormtrooper in, I don't remember which Star Wars it was, the stormtrooper that ended up leaving the Empire. I mean, how many other stormtroopers are there that was like, they're just trying to provide for their family, and this is the best opportunity for them, and they get fucking blown up? It's tough. This one's your favorite movie, Alien Resurrection, when Ripley had to kill her beautiful baby for the good of humanity. That one makes me very angry. This will make you even more angry when Wolverine kills the Phoenix.
Wow. Two of the worst sequels ever made in a row.
But that was a good moment. That was probably, by far the best moment in the movie. But that was a good moment. Michael Corleone killing Fredo. Josh Hartnett's character in 30 Days a Night, when he turns himself into a vampire to fight off the other vampires, and then he realizes that he's a vampire, so then he goes out in the sun and blows himself up. The Scarlet Witch kills Vision in Infinity War. This one, I think it's one. So the little kid shooting Old Yeller when Old Yeller gets rabies.
Yeah, but I don't know that is, because yes, he loves Old Yeller and he doesn't want to shoot him. But Old Yeller's going to die no matter what.
Yeah,
he's got rabies now.
But you don't have to kill him.
There's no surviving that.
Right? So he's killing him so Old Yeller can't hurt other animals or other people, or, so he's got to he's taking Old Yeller down also to end his suffering. So it's the greater good. It's probably more to end his suffering.
Yes.
I think he was tied up anyway. But, he still has to take him out, and he's still killing something that he loves in order for the greater good. And that's it's heartbreaking. You don't have a soul if that don't get to you. Clint brought up one that horrified me before we did this, but he told me in the last episode of MASH, and I never saw this, that they were hiding from the enemy, and there was a baby in there, and that baby was crying, and it was going to tip off the enemy where they are, and they had to smother the baby. If that's true, how did that get on network TV?
That's an interesting question, because you know how it got on network TV? It got on network TV because they replaced the baby with, was it a chicken or a dog, Clint?
I don't recall.
Because the way it's set up is Hawkeye is struggling with this PTSD, and he's remembering this moment where they were hiding from the enemy, and in his memory, the woman was holding a chicken. And he kept saying, you have to shut up that chicken. That chicken's going to give us away. And she puts her hand over the head of the chicken. It covers its beak. And it's only at the end that it's revealed that it wasn't a chicken. It was a baby. And because he has PTSD, his mind replaced the baby with a chicken. Oh, that's how they got it on TV. Yeah. You don't remember that? Yeah, it was.
No, I saw
it was pretty brutal.
Some reruns of MASH, but it was like, it wasn't that tone. It was a comedy.
MASH could go back and forth between comedy and more serious kind of heavy stuff.
It was the Korean War.
Pretty easily. It went back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
I think the show went on like 3 times as long as the actual war did.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. There was it was like 30 million people or something that tuned in for the finale. It was something unheard of. Could you imagine getting 30 million numbers now, today, in network TV? No.
No, if you get 3 million people watching you, you're a
30 million people watched the finale of MASH. That's most of the country. That's insane. Yep. Do you have any more that you want to add? Is there anything you can think of?
How about when Erica Eleniak shoots the terrorist in Under Siege because she said she doesn't shoot people? And he says, next thing I know, you'll be dating musicians.
Yeah, that might be number one, I think. We might put that at number one.
I have one to add, an episode from Babylon 5, The Long Good Night, where Captain Sheridan sacrifices Bryan Cranston, guest starring as a captain of a ship, to lure their enemy into a fight.
Good one. Did you see that one, Ty?
I've seen all the episodes of Babylon 5. I don't remember that one specifically, but it's been a while since I've watched that show.
It's funny because if you do think about the way that you would think that you would behave, the moral compass that you have in you, and how quickly all that falls away if something precious to you is threatened, or if you need to do something for the greater good.
Well, okay, so now you keep saying the greater good, which is making me think of Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, with the whole town.
Where the main character abhors violence and doesn't want police work to be about violence. And, when he's talking to his buddy's like, hey, have you ever shot anybody? And he's like, no, it shouldn't be about that. Police work shouldn't be about violence and action and stuff. And then by the end, he's forced to turn into an action hero and commit many acts of violence because, for the greater good.
I've never seen Hot Fuzz.
Oh, my God. It's fantastic. How can you have not seen it?
It's a tragedy. I've never seen it. I'm a big fan of that director.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I missed it in the theater. Speaking of which, have you seen A Quiet Place 2 yet?
I have not.
Can't wait to see that. Did you see The Conjuring, the new Conjuring?
I hate the Conjuring movies with a deep passion. I refuse to give them any of my money.
Well, I guess it's it. But I'm super excited about A Quiet Place 2. Did we see it together?
Maybe. I don't think so.
Were you a fan?
I know. I thought the first one was really good. I'm not sure how excited I am about a sequel.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like it's going to tell the same story over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where they can go.
Yeah.
That will be interesting. But, I'll wait and see.
I'm always rooting for horror to do well. So.
Yeah, me too. But the reason I hate The Conjuring is because the people that it's supposedly based on were fucking con men. And they conned a lot of people out of a lot of money and hurt a lot of families because of the lies that they told. And to have those people's legacy turned into this long-running movie franchise fucking infuriates me. So I hate everyone involved with that franchise.
Well, I think that's a good way to end this this episode. We hate everybody involved with that.
Yeah.
Well, I think just talking about the situation is good enough. I don't think we need to do a top 5.
Okay. But number 1 is definitely Erika Leniak shooting the terrorist.
So we're going to say number 1 is that one. Number 2 is MASH. Number 3 is Scarlet Witch in Infinity War. Number 4 is Old Yeller. Number 5 is Corleone killing Fredo.
Boy, that's probably the first time anything from The Godfathers wound up number 5 on a top 5 list.
Well, the thing is like, I think it definitely belongs on the list. But then it's like, what is it for the greater good? You know, like what is...
What's it for the greater good of the Corleone family?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you look at it from the protagonist's point of view, it's his principles, it's his code that he's standing up for. All right, well, we can elevate it in the list. We can put it at number 2.
Well, the order of these lists is incredibly important. So, yeah.
This is the only list where Under Siege will be above The Godfather. We should be.
That's true.
We should be film professors. There's a lot of lack of appreciation for Big Trouble in Little China, which we constantly stand up for, and also the lack of appreciation for Under Siege. You know, those things infuriate me.
Under Siege, my position is Under Siege is the best Die Hard ripoff they've ever made.
Or what about Eye of the Tiger?
Well, Eye of the Tiger's not a Die Hard ripoff.
No, it's not. It's just it's a great action movie that nobody talks about.
So Eye of the Tiger is a great movie, but Eye of the Tiger should be famous for, the single greatest movie trailer.
Yeah, I don't even know if I've seen the movie. I'm really talking about the trailer. The trailer is, you don't need to see the movie because the trailer is the entire movie in two minutes. Literally, the trailer is the entire first, second, and third act in the trailer.
Yep. In the trailer.
It's incredible.
In 2 minutes. Yeah. It's a fantastic trailer. Everybody should go. Clint, you should put the link to the Eye of the Tiger trailer in this video so that everybody can go watch it because it'll change their lives.
It'll change their lives. And then they should watch the director's commentary of Cobra.
I've never seen that.
You have to listen to this commentary. It is the best. Okay. You can listen to it on YouTube. And it's the direction. Oh, I love it so much. It's so good.
All right. I'll check it out.
Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.